Okay, here's one of the rear brake assemblies. This is actually the right-hand side rear brake assembly to our Speedster project that we're working on. The front of the car is in this direction, so forward is that way, and the levers and things that actuate the brakes are on the front hand or the front side here. So I have all these pieces kind of loosely assembled so we can go through them and try to show you all the pieces. We tried to find an exploded drawing online, things like that, didn't really find much, so I figured I'd help out and show what I can. So this is the emergency brake here, or parking brake. It has its own separate pivot shaft, and let me go ahead and pull the lever and spring off of there. So there's a return spring and a lever, and the lever is left-right dependent, and it actually says right hand on it very faintly there. Another way you can kind of figure it out is there's only one machine side. This side is rounded, and so this is the side that rubs on the casing, and the springs are also right-left, and basically the arm wraps around, or the spring wraps around the arm and then holds itself against the service brake shaft. So and just, you know, remember the spring should be pushing the lever back. It's held on with a pinch bolt, which is kind of on the rare side for some of the Model A stuff. So there's a pinch bolt there and a lock nut, and then there's a keyway, a tiny keyway that goes in there. That also goes in the shaft. Okay, so there's those main pieces. The spring, by the way, typically is broken for the return spring. Okay, so here's the e-brake assembly here. It has its own backing plate. So when that shaft twists, it pushes this crescent upwards, or rearwards, I guess, and actually spreads the whole band. It's a one-piece shoe, kind of like Model T. And there's two return springs that go in these small holes here that hook onto these two little darted metal pieces there. My buddy Vince has already replaced the bands on this, so you can see they are brass riveted in place, one band per. The head, of course, goes towards the drum, so it will wear on the drum, but that gives you the most material retaining the band. If you were to put the rivets in backwards, it wouldn't stay on there very long, I don't think. Held in with 3 pins with cotter pins there. It holds the assembly, holds the crescent. I'm sorry, there's actually 4 if you count the one down here on the shaft. You can see the shaft there and the keyway location. Okay. These are right-left specific, so don't mix them up. Basically the crescent goes to the rear of the car. And the backing plate is also right-left specific. And you can see here, this is where the split of the brake shoe goes. In the backing plate, there are 2 brass bushings that are pressed into either side here and here, and they're not installed in this one yet. But my buddy James made a nice little tool to press them in, because they're actually very thin, so you don't have much of a shot getting them in there without buckling them. So he made a nice little tool to support it and to press that in there. So there's one for each side. It's a split bushing. You just press them in until they're flush. Okay, nothing else on the backing plate there. This goes on when you bolt it to the axle. They pass through both plates, but you have to put this on and then put the e-brake on once it's installed to the axle. Okay, the service brakes are actuated by a cam. So there's 4 rollers here that roll on this cam. This cam actually floats inside of this shaft here. The shaft is what is actuated by the brake lever. So here's the brake lever. They are also left-right hand specific. They are not marked, and it's pretty subtle. When you look downward on the car, the brake rod will point towards the center of the vehicle as you go forward. Okay, there's just a very slight camber on that, right? So the brake rods go towards the center of the car as they go forward. So this is canted just ever so slightly. One of the two will be wallered out. Either it's going to be this lever or it's going to be the brake rod, because the pin seizes up on one or the other and then wears out to the other one when it moves on it. And here's a small ring that goes on the wear side up against the backing plate. So the shoes are held in place with these two springs here and this one spring here that pulls the two together. Okay. When the cam is turned, the two shoes are pushed apart from each other. See that there? All these parts need to be able to move freely. Let's take the shaft out of here. So the cam has to be able to slide freely in this carrier here, because that's what equalizes the force on the two shoes. So if one hits the drum before the other, this will shift ever so slightly left-right. This is really your only thing to equalize the force on the two shoes. So this better be in good condition here. This is what rides in between the two wheels. The wheels actually ride on this surface. This is just to divide them. So it actually rides on this surface here. The wheels, they're supposed to be 1 1/4 inch nominal diameter. I had to go through a whole lot of wheels because we have a whole bunch of scrap parts. I had to go through a lot of wheels to find two that weren't, or I guess find 8 that weren't really pitted and their diameter was consistent. What happens is if the wheel locks up, which, you know, the grease and everything in here, once it gets a bunch of brake dust in it, it doesn't want to really let go of it too much. So if the wheel locks up, it's going to skid on that cam, right? And it's going to wear a dent into the wheel, and then it's not going to want to move at all. And so you'll see that. So when you check it with a caliper, you need to rotate the wheel all the way around, right? So this thing's about 3 thou undersized, 3/4 thou undersized, but you see there's no major flat spots in it. Same thing with the pins. The pins, you gotta check the diameter of those. They're supposed to be 7/16 nominal, 375, or 4375, sorry, is that right? Yeah, 4375. Basically it's a double shear arrangement, so you're either going to see wear here, here, or here. So I had to go through quite a few pins to find some that were really good. The same bronze bushings that were in the e-brake go in here as well, 2, just like the e-brake. Now to the adjuster. So there's a dust cap on the adjuster. So if you knock that guy off, you can see the adjuster down in there. And this is where things tend to go wrong, getting this stuff apart. Usually these adjusting shafts are seized up in there pretty well. And the pins go in from the back, and then there's a cotter pin on the top there. That's what holds it in. So you can get the cotter pin out, but you can't get the pin to go back because it can't go back far enough. See, it hits the backing plate. And so you can't get the shoe loose, so you can't really get this thing going. And of course you can't get the cam out yet. It's going to be stuck in there pretty well, so everything's kind of locked in place. But what you have to do is get heat on it or whatever and manage to get this adjusting pin to slide out. And once that's out, then you're in business. Don't go slamming on this adjuster. It's not going to get you anywhere because it is threaded from the back. See, big long thread there. So that's the thing that when you adjust the brakes, you can turn in the back, it drives this in. When this goes in, it pushes on these two wedges. These wedges here, see they're tapered like that, like the adjuster. There, and it pushes that out, and that's what takes up the slack. So it's really important that these two adjusters be the same length. And if you think it's possible that they might not be the same length, just check that out. Who knows where that guy came from, but somebody is ground on that sucker. Something went awfully wrong there. So the way I was checking the length, because they shouldn't wear, honestly. They're not moving. But I was checking the length here from the inner surface of the inner diameter of this pinhole to the short side of the taper. Right? You don't want to go to the long side because that depends on how they got ground off and all that. But if you go to the short side, it's a little more repeatable anyway. So 1.580 or so, and then this guy is awful similar, at least as close as I can measure. So I sorted through a bunch of them and tried to find match pairs. The angle needs to also be the same. It should be, unless somebody has ground all over it, but it basically is a mating angle to this. But these are the things you need to check out. You see how that's kind of dovetailed like that, and that's so it fits in those grooves. And that keeps this guy from just rotating like crazy while you're driving around. So this stuff should all be greased when you put it back together, because all these parts need to be able to kind of move around, but they don't move much, and that's the typical problem with like drum brake setups with things like this. You know, the auto adjusters on old Mustangs and stuff, you know, old Ford 9-inch, same kind of problem. The grease gets caked up. The thing hasn't moved for quite a while because it hasn't needed to, and next thing you know, it doesn't move when it needs to. So those are the pieces. Shouldn't see a lot of wear on the pins for those. So these are the shorter pins. The axles have longer, the wheels have longer pins that act as the axles, right? So that's that. These shoes are, there's no pad material on them yet. We have the pads ordered. They're also held in with brass rivets. Again, the rivet head goes from the front side, and you bucket on the back side. And anything else about the backing plate here? Pretty much all the way down. Maybe we'll just go right back through it.